Good morning and welcome to another Writer's Morning Commute with Ashton Gaskill. This past weekend, my daughter and I were watching some My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic, and the show, well, before I get any deeper, let's just say the show has some very disturbing, in my opinion, members of the adult fan base that I don't associate with. I'm just one person who enjoys the show and who tries to enjoy it quietly, usually. That aside, the show does have some very excellent things I think it can teach writers. While the ending of the show is usually predictable, in that it's a show for kids, so it's going to end with a lesson about friendship, which is half of the point of the show, the other half, of course, being to sell toys. How they get from the start of the problem to the solution is often very interesting and well written. The first thing I wanted to talk about was how they're able to maintain these two separate fan bases. So obviously their primary fan base are young girls who like ponies, who like the bright colors, the silliness, and they probably also like the action-adventure elements. My daughter's a year and a half, and one of her favorite things to do is sword fight right now. So I'm sure that there's plenty of girls out there who enjoy the world building just as much as I do. The other side of the fan base are the adults who enjoy the show. And why they can enjoy the show while other shows in the same vein aren't enjoyable is because the writers treat the audience like they're intelligent. They have long-running story arcs that a lot of kids probably aren't going to pick up on. They have a lot of references that kids aren't going to pick up on. There was one episode where, at the end, there was a medal ceremony that was beat for beat the end of Star Wars: A New Hope. And, I mean, kids aren't going to pick up on that kind of thing. So by using these solid storytelling tools, they are able to maintain that. However, at the same time, I'm sure there are some kids they lose because it's not just purely designed for kids, and I'm sure there's a lot of adults who never give the show a chance because it's obviously made for little girls first and foremost. So even if you're like, say, a fantasy romance author, you could write a fantasy romance, but you're going to lose some of your audience who just like fantasy because they're not going to try romance, and some of your audience that are romance readers because they're not interested in fantasy. I am kind of interested in the idea of writing a single book and then giving it two different titles and covers and everything, and then selling it as both, selling one of them as a fantasy book and one of them as a romance book. But that's a discussion for another day, I think. The other thing I wanted to talk about, and as well as something that helps maintain that secondary audience, is the world building. I was on a panel this last weekend, live stream, with some other fantasy authors, and we were talking about world building, and I think the show has just very excellent and consistent world building, where they have certain threats, they have certain cultures, and those groups are always consistent. When, for instance, in the episode I watched, the Changeling showed up, and they kidnapped people and took their spots and transformed into them. And it was really cool, because we had seen them before, we knew what they were capable of, we knew what their ultimate end goal was, so we didn't need to waste time establishing all those things. It's also really cool in how they've continued to develop their theme. Obviously, their theme is a bit simplistic and on the nose, with friendship is magic and the power of friendship in general. However, that's something that any writer can take and make it a little bit more subtle and appropriate for your own audience. So that's kind of that second writing tip in there, is that developing a theme for a overall series, a book, whatever length you're working on, can really help unify the whole thing. And even if you have different adventures and you have different things going on, just that one single theme running through it all, and even in your world building, if you can tie your very world building to it, it's really going to help the rest of that pop, because it's going to feel like everything else just makes more sense in this world when the world building itself is based on it. The friendship is magic stuff would come across as much more corny, even cornier than it does, if the world wasn't so based on friendship being magic. I mean, friendship literally takes the changelings and transforms them into beautiful butterfly things. So yeah, incorporate your theme into your world and take on to audiences at your own risk. Thank you all for riding with me, and I hope you have a great day.